Hi, my name's Aiden.
And I'm Jake.
And welcome to History and Haunts. Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of
History and Haunts.
Oh, you want to take over?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Now I lost my train of thought, guys. This is the very first episode. In case you couldn't tell by the title, episode 1. This podcast has...
Let me just say something real quick. Before you
judge us for this intro.
I don't know what you're doing anymore. She says something new every time she hits that red button there on the screen. I just want you guys to know this is attempt number 12 at the podcast. Between a guy building a house outside, this is our gentleman mowing the lawn outside. It might be our yard. I don't even know if it's our yard, to be honest with you.
Our
dog is just chilling.
Our
cat's chilling. I mean, I wasn't going to go into detail about the cat and stuff.
The cat was the worst part. The cat's the reason why we had to do like the first 5 takes, I think.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. You're right. We're tucked in our back bedroom. Air conditioning off. It's 83 degrees in this house. No fan. No moving currents. You know, sweat's going to start forming here pretty soon. So I'm just here to facilitate, you know.
Oh, my God.
So go ahead and go ahead and continue. You know what, actually.
Oh, he's got more. Okay.
Yeah. I'm already sweating. So go ahead. Just go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead with the podcast. Let him go ahead.
Let him go. No. Okay. Yeah, guys, it's been quite a process. Not only is this our 12th attempt at starting this, clearly making a podcast is a learning curve. I don't think I realized quite how much.
I set up a second microphone. It took me about an hour and a half for it to not work.
Yeah. So we're going to have to invest in another microphone eventually.
No. We just have to learn how to set it up. We already have a second microphone.
We just can't use it today. But
especially if it's broken. Or it gets broken.
Oh, gosh. So like I was saying, not only is this our 12th attempt, but this podcast has been 3 years in the making now. I first came up with the idea.
30 years in the making.
No. I haven't even been alive for 30 years.
I'm pretty sure about 6 Christmases ago. You know, that's when... I got nothing. Go ahead.
You got us this microphone 6 Christmases ago. We weren't even together 6 Christmases ago.
Close enough.
So I came up with this idea in nursing school. And for those of you that have been to nursing school, you know that it is not the time to take on extra projects or make a podcast.
I could imagine.
Yeah, you could. So I didn't start the podcast in the end, but what I did do is come up with like 17 episodes that are just ready to go. I just need to actually record them. So I was like, you know what? Today's the day. We're recording this episode. And here we are. Welcome to the very first episode. Just to give you a little bit about like what this podcast is going to be about. I am a big podcast listener. I started a major podcast listener, especially morbid podcasts. That was like...
Don't get her going.
Yeah, I won't... Well, listen.
What are you, 800 episodes deep?
I think so.
Start to finish, 800 episodes.
Yeah. Back when I was behind on them, because like they have so many episodes and they come out with so many, I was listening to morbid like all day, every day. So I got a little inspired. I was like, wow,
When you do nothing but sit and stare at a wall, you got some time on your hands to figure some stuff out.
Listen, when you're listening to these podcast episodes, you're all in. I'm so focused that I'm just staring at the wall thinking about like what they're talking about, you know?
I got you.
Yeah. So, anyway, they kind of inspired me to make a podcast, but the true crime field like really isn't for me. I like listening to it, but I wouldn't want to do a podcast. I love history and I love haunted stuff, and there's like podcasts about each as an individual topic, but I couldn't really find a good one that was about both. So I was like, oh, there we go. That's what I'm going to do it about, history and haunts.
I'm sure you would have found it if there was one.
Yeah, probably. I have spent like 3 years looking, so there isn't that I could find. Each episode we're going to cover a historic site. The goal is to do like sites all over the world, but in the beginning I think most of them are probably in the US because that's where I'm from and those are the ones like I'm most familiar with. But eventually we'll expand our horizons, and the beginning of the episode will be like the background on the place, the history of it, And then towards the end, we'll get into the haunted stuff and the legends, if there's any legends associated with it.
That's exciting.
I know, I'm excited.
I know you are.
So that's a little bit about the podcast. A little bit about me. My name's Aiden. I am a nurse. Obviously, that's why I went to nursing school.
Wow.
And I did pass nursing school, so whoop whoop.
What?
Well, I mean, I don't know. You could go to nursing school and not be a nurse. Maybe. I don't know who would put themselves through that,
I do not know anybody who's ever done that in their life.
I don't either.
To go through
Hell.
4 years of cranium, learning the cranium.
Yeah, and then not use that knowledge. So I have a few hobbies other than listening to Morbid. I like horses. I ride horses. I love reading. Yeah, don't get me started on the horses. I love reading. I love traveling. I love learning about history. Anything else? I love my dog. My cat's all right.
Okay. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. What about you?
That sounds pretty good. I'm Jake. I'm just your local fireman, father.
To what?
Brother. I'm just kidding. I'm not a father.
Except to your cat.
No, I'm not. I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, I enjoy a good workout. I play the piano, not really recently, but
yeah,
it's a good it's a good hobby of mine. I enjoy it. It's pretty fun. I like to read as well. I'll play video games with my friends. Other than that, you know.
You've recently been getting into the history too, which is how I finally got him to agree to do this podcast, I think.
I think that you're just going with that. I think I was going to do this podcast regardless. I did not have a choice.
No, he didn't. But you know what? I can say now that it wasn't forced because he's started learning about history.
I did. I've dabbled.
Dabbled in history.
You know why too? You know what? Let me expose myself real quick. Okay. I was watching a video online, on the YouTube.
On the YouTube? Are we 90?
And this guy was asking this girl all these questions about like basic history, of the United States. And I did not know the answers to a single one of them. So I figured why not try to learn more about it,
Yeah.
That's all I got,
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. Our first episode is going to be about Fort Mifflin, which is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that's actually where I was born, which is why I chose to do this as our first.
Oh wow, that's
episode.
cool.
Yeah, very cool. I give a little tribute to my hometown, although I didn't live there for very long, but
Oh, okay.
Figured why not.
Yeah.
So Fort Mifflin, like I said, it's in Pennsylvania along the Delaware River on this island called Mud Island. And
it's an island for real? Or it's like a city?
Oh, it's an actual island in the Delaware River. I don't know if it's muddy. I would assume it is since it's called Mud Island.
It's probably like a very clean island.
Maybe it is.
It's probably well-kept grass over there.
Yeah, there's probably not a spot of mud in sight, honestly. But, oh well, it's called Mud Island. This fort is lovingly referred to as the fort that saved America because it's been a very busy boy. This fort has been...
Oh, what?
It's been a busy boy.
Oh, okay.
This fort has been involved in literally like so many historical events. So, yeah.
We talking like all the wars type, or what do you mean?
All the wars.
Like World War II?
Oh yeah, World War II, World War I, the
Cold War? The Cold War too?
1812. I don't know about the
Cold War. The Cold War was
pretty.
It wasn't
cold.
even a war. Yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah. This fort has quite a few names actually. Along with Fort Mifflin, it's also known as Mud Island Fort, and it was originally named Fort Island Battery. I thought that was the weirdest name out of the three.
Interesting.
Yeah. And as we were talking about, it's participated in a lot of wars. It has participated in almost every war that the U.S. has fought in since the Revolutionary War.
Oh, that's interesting.
So since like...
Why though? Why did they choose that place?
Because it's
Mud Island.
Well, it's a very strategic location, which we'll get into in a little bit, but it's a good spot.
This is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
That's the most prime location to centralize a base of operations.
I don't know if you know this, but back when the U.S. was first like becoming its own country, Philadelphia was
actually... You talking about in 1492?
No. That's when Christopher Columbus came here. I'm talking about in the 1700s.
1776?
Yeah, when the Revolutionary War was happening.
Oh, okay. That's where the Declaration was signed, right?
Yeah, in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia? Okay.
Anyway, it was a very strategic spot because Philadelphia was actually the capital for a little while.
Oh.
So, it was a good spot, trust me.
Wait. I'm going to expose myself again. What is the capital of Pennsylvania? Is it Philadelphia?
You know, what I meant by... What I meant by capital was, you know how like Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States?
Right.
Well, back in the day, Philadelphia was the capital of the United States.
Oh, okay. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Quick side note, though. What's the capital of Pennsylvania?
You know, I would like to say that it's Philadelphia.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it is, but I also just feel like people from Philadelphia, like, think of Philadelphia as its own thing. And, like, maybe that's why I think it's the capital, but I'm pretty sure it's the capital of Pennsylvania.
Let me take a look here.
Yeah, look it up for me. I'm 99% sure.
I think it's Philadelphia.
No, I'm wrong. It's Harrisburg.
I've never heard of that place in my life.
I actually have, because I'm pretty sure my grandparents used to live there. Why the heck is...
What?
Why the heck is Philadelphia not the capital? Man, Philadelphia's really fallen. It went from capital of the entire United States to the capital of nothing. You are such a nerd.
It's just a place, man. It's just a place.
It's a great place. You've never been, so you wouldn't know, but
You're
I
just
have.
Gonna just call me out like that?
Yeah. Next vacation, we're going there. Where was I? Okay, so it was originally a British fortification, so it was owned by the British, and they began constructing it in 1771. They did stop.
Why did they construct it originally?
Because who doesn't want a fort? It's a great place and a strategic...
Miami? Does Miami have a fort?
You're asking too many questions. I don't know.
I mean, there's no stupid questions. Am I right?
Well, it's always good to have a strong place in your capital city.
I guess it depends on location, too. You know?
Yeah.
Like back in the day, like, you know, ship warfare and whatnot.
Yeah, they
probably want a fort off of a coast or something like that.
Yeah.
I got you. I'd have to see this on a map to see why they chose to build it there.
We'll post some pictures of a map, so
okay.
You'll be able to see. The British did stop the construction in 1773. I'm assuming they might have because the baby Americans were meddling. You know, they were trying to start a war and whatnot to get their freedom. And construction was not resumed until the Americans took over the fort in 1775 or 1776, depending on what source you look at. The Americans, they did a great job. They held this fort strong for 2 solid years, and they had about 200 men garrisoned there originally.
Oh, garrisoned? Like stationed there?
Yeah, stationed there.
I mean, okay.
In 1777, the fort was renamed in honor of Thomas Mifflin, who was a Continental Army officer, hence the name Fort Mifflin. The goal of the Americans' goal was to hold off the British Army and Navy and prevent them from getting supplies to British-occupied Philadelphia. And that's a big job because, like, the Americans are new and the British Army and Navy are well-established. So that's why they needed this fort, because it was very strategically placed. If they could have control of that fort, they could kind of prevent supplies from getting into Philadelphia. And Philadelphia at the time, and it still is, it's a bustling city. And back in the 1700s, it actually had about 18,000 British troops.
What was the population in comparison?
Today or
no,
back in the
back
day?
in 1773.
I believe it was in the 30,000s, maybe.
Oh, like 30,000?
Yeah, like the population was 30,000, but they also had the British troops. So if you think about it...
Over half the population was the British soldiers.
You know, I don't know if it was like 30,000 plus 18,000 or 30,000 minus 18,000. Either way, you had a lot of people there, and you need to be able to get...
A lot of 30-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody died very young.
Yeah. Well, listen, there wasn't good medical care back in the day.
8 kids by 20.
Oh my God, that's awful. Oh God, how many kids would we have by now? Probably like 7.
Probably just in hopes that one lives, you know, to
one.
be 30.
But they really needed to get their supplies in, obviously, to take care of these 18,000 British troops and any of the other people that might be living there. They needed to get medical supplies in. And not only did they want to get the fort back so that they could take care of their people, but they also wanted to boost morale because they had recently experienced a defeat. So if they could recapture the fort, the morale would be boosted. So the British obviously were not going to let this go, and there was a siege on Fort Mifflin that occurred in 1777. Mm-hmm. And as you can imagine, the Americans were very outnumbered. They were unable to appropriate...
What was the purpose of the siege?
The British wanted to get the fort back.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. And also, as a quick side note, I looked it up on a map, just so I know what I'm looking at here. And it looks like Mud Island is like right off of a river.
Yeah, the like Delaware River.
Yeah. Well, I asked earlier and you did not say nothing.
I literally said it's along the Delaware River on Mud Island. We're going to go back and listen and you'll hear.
Right off, so it's right off of a river. So I can see why that would be a good place to have Mud Island Fort.
Fort Mifflin, you mean? Anyway, so like I was saying, the Americans could not retaliate appropriately against the British Army and Navy because they only had about 400 soldiers there. And the British people, they were bringing in like everyone to try to get this fort back, you know? Yeah. But these 400 soldiers, they really put in the work. They fought very hard for about 4 or 5 days. 5 days, yeah.
400 British soldiers?
400 American soldiers were trying to fight against the British Army and Navy.
18,000 plus we're talking here?
I don't think 18,000. I don't think they put the entire force of Philadelphia against them. But just, they're going to bring more than 400 people, you know? So.
Yeah, I mean, this could be like the... Oh, man. What's it called? The 300 soldiers?
I have no idea.
I'll get back to it.
Okay. So on November 15th, 1777, after 5 days of being under siege and 150 deaths, I just want to point out 150 deaths is almost half of their people, of the Americans' people. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine, like, you're trying to fight these British people off and then half of your people are dead and your numbers are just dwindling? There's not a very good chance.
They're very outnumbered.
Yeah, they are.
I would imagine.
So Major Simon Thayer, he decided that it was time to get out of there, and he ordered an evacuation, and they went to Fort Mercer. But there were 40 Americans who were, they were like really brave, because I wouldn't want to be one of these people. They stayed behind after the other people left, and they lit fire to the fort before evacuating and joining their crew at Fort Mercer. And they did this to like burn any supplies and whatnot that were in the fort so that the British couldn't have those too.
So they burned this fort?
Mm-hmm. They
did?
The
Mud Island Fort?
Yep. They did. They said, fuck you, British. We're not.
Jesus. And it's still standing to this day?
Yeah. They said, we're not giving you any of our supplies. You know? I mean, would you want to
Fair enough.
Would you want to give the enemy all these supplies that they had in there?
No, I definitely would not.
Because then you're only helping them.
So they just set it on fire?
Yeah. What else
was it made of? Was it made of mud?
I think it was made of stone.
Oh.
It was probably like stone wood, and I would think that like they burned like the supplies and whatnot. Anyway, the British took over, but the fort fell into disrepair because, you know, we won the war. So the British weren't there for much longer.
Is there a name for this war?
The Revolutionary War.
That's the one?
That's the one.
That is what evolved around Fort Mud?
Well, no, the Revolutionary... Oh my God, this is why you need to watch more history videos. The Revolutionary War was the people that came over to the U.S., or what's going to be the U.S., they were unhappy with the way the British people were doing it, like, you know, they said like taxation without representation or something like that.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah. So they were like, nah, man, we're not happy. We're gonna fight against this and make our own country. But the British were like, hell no, you're not. So then they started a war. And the Revolutionary War didn't necessarily revolve around Fort Mifflin, but that was one of the spots because of its strategic location.
No, I got you. I got you.
Okay. So the fort did not receive any reconstruction until 1795, but they had a pretty good budget of $94,000 back in 1795.
I wonder how many stones that could buy you.
I would think a shit ton, because today that's worth about $2.2 million.
The stones or the fort?
The $94,000. You make me laugh. The $94,000 budget that was allotted for repairs towards Fort Mifflin, that $94,000 is worth about $2.2 million today.
Well, what can $2 million get you today? You can't retire off of $2 million.
It could get you a lot.
It could get you a house in a gated neighborhood, possibly, dependent on location.
Okay, well listen, back in the day they didn't have gated neighborhoods. They were just trying to fix up their fort, and I think $94,000 is a good budget. You can repair a house for $94,000 today, so I'm sure you can repair a fort for $2.2 million.
Fair enough.
Okay, good.
Fair enough.
Good. In the early 1800s, Secretary of State Alexander Hamilton, you ever heard of that guy?
Yes.
There's this play. Any theater kid will know it. I don't know what the play is. I don't know what the play's called. I can't even think of the lyrics of the song. But...
What? And you're going to give an example of this? That I am a viewer here too, not going to know what you're talking about.
Well, my point is that they'll know who Alexander Hamilton is. It's a really good song. If I could think of it, I would sing it. So it's probably good that I can't think of it.
Is it a 50 States song?
No. It's a good song. But anyway, this dude, Alexander Hamilton, he wanted to expand and solidify the fort because he thought it was a strategic military base. What
was the acreage in which this fort is built upon? Do you know?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea. And I agree. It's a pretty strategic spot because it's like protecting the capital, and it's right on the river, all that good stuff. And he had a budget of $15,000. But when Thomas Jefferson was elected president, he was like, nah, dude, you don't need $15K. And he decreased the budget to $1,000 because he thought it wasn't that important. And while I do kind of agree with Alexander Hamilton, I also agree with Thomas Jefferson because they were moving the capital from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. So it's like, why are we going to put $15,000 into fixing this fort up when the capital's not even going to be here anymore? We can put this money into something else in the new capital, Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So the fort was actively manned again during the War of 1812, but it didn't see any action. And then it was abandoned. I mean, look, this fort's been through it. It was abandoned again until 1835.
You're talking about the Fort of the Mud?
Fort Mifflin, yeah.
Is it also called Fort of the Mud, though?
It's called... It had a bunch of names, remember?
I thought you rattled them off. I thought Fort of the Mud was one of them. Mud of the Fort. Mud Fort.
Mud Island Fort. That was another name.
Ah, it's close enough.
But Fort Mifflin is what I call it.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, though.
I do know what you're talking about. So it was abandoned again until 1835, and then at that point, Congress gave them another $70,000 for repairs. And if you go and look at the fort today and visit, it's been restored to the 1834 appearance. So whatever they did to fix it back up then, that's what it looks like today.
And now you can buy a $35
ticket and
voucher.
Go. Yeah, probably.
And go and view.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how much it is to go there.
Acreaged mud of the fort.
Yes. I don't know what you said.
There is nothing online, by the way, that says the amount of land.
Oh, I'm sure it's somewhere.
Well, it looks like it's in a pretty dense location, so I can't imagine it's too much.
Maybe it's not. The next war that the fort participated in was the Civil War, and during this time it served as a military prison. And this is one of... I know.
What was the year on that?
The Civil War.
Oh, so 1850? 1850s?
I think so. I don't really know, honestly.
1850s.
Sure.
The Civil War, right?
Yeah, the Civil War.
Yeah, I know something.
This is my favorite part of the history of the fort, actually, because I think it's the most interesting.
Yeah. That would have been occupied by the North at the time, yeah?
I would think so.
During the Civil War?
Yeah.
Philadelphia?
Mm-hmm. It was occupied by the Union soldiers. During its time as a military prison, it held Confederate prisoners of war. It also held Union soldiers and civilians.
Okay.
There were 3 bomb-proof shelters at the time, known as casemates. Remember what those are, because they come up later.
Casemates? Mm-hmm. Okay.
In July of 1863, the fort began receiving its first prisoners after the Battle of Gettysburg.
1853, you said?
1863.
Ah.
And after the Battle of Gettysburg.
Okay. That was the bloodiest battle in the recorded history, yeah?
Yeah, I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
At this time, it held up to 216 Confederate prisoners before they were transferred to bigger prisons. I know, that's kind of a lot, right?
That is interesting, yeah.
I know.
I can only imagine how many they stuffed inside, like, cells.
Oh, God, it was probably
How many cells were there, do you know? Like, holding areas?
I'm not sure, honestly.
I bet there was, like, 3.
You know, they were, like... They found some casemates, which were the bomb-proof shelters, not too long ago. I don't know the exact year that they found them, so I don't know if, like, everything's been discovered or not.
In the fort itself? Mm-hmm. How have you not discovered it's a building?
Look up what year casemate 11 was discovered.
Oh, God.
They were still finding stuff. So the Union soldiers that were held there, they faced punishments like whipping, branding, and being hung by their thumbs. Can you imagine
by your thumb?
Yes. Can you imagine being hung by your thumbs?
Well, listen. My thumbs are snapping off. There's no way.
Yeah, I don't think they could support your body weight. If you could see the look he just gave me.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, it's fine. I'm used to it.
And can you imagine being branded?
Branded?
Yeah.
Like
with a hot iron?
It's called getting a tattoo back in the day, man.
No. It's not. This is different. This is with like iron and fire, and then they brand it like what they did in Orange is the New Black. Spoiler alert. But I didn't tell you on who.
It is 2024.
You're right.
I don't know if anybody's watching a show from 2011.
We are. So don't spoil it.
Wait,
we are.
Oh, God.
Another thing that the Union prisoners had to do, they had to do hard labor with an iron ball attached to their ankle.
Is that where that came from?
Is that where what came from?
I just feel like in every cartoon I ever saw growing up, they just had this unnecessary ball on their feet.
I mean, maybe. You know what this reminds me of? There's this, like, Greek legend, and I don't know what the guy's name is, but it's like a punishment that he's receiving, and he has to push this massive rock up a hill, and then every day he finally gets it to the top, and it falls back down. And that's kind of what this reminds me of. A bit different because the ball wasn't on his ankle, and this is on his ankle, but it just sounds like it would suck.
It's pretty different.
Well, that's what it reminds me of, okay? So the Union prisoners, they were not super happy, as you can imagine, and they had an uprising in December of 1863.
Wait. What was the purpose of the ball on the foot, though?
To make the labor hard.
Just because you gotta, like, drag it around?
Yeah, man. Can you imagine having to drag
Because I imagine they got them, like, chopping wood, chopping pines down. You're not doing much walking, chopping a tree.
Well, you might be if you gotta get out of the way of the tree because it's falling on you.
Take 12-inch step to the left, you're out of the fire.
I just feel like no matter what you're
doing, you got
this
ball just sitting there on the ground for no reason.
I just feel like no matter what you're doing, if you have an iron ball attached to your ankle, it's gonna make it harder.
Great calf muscles.
No, they're probably getting.
They were working out with that thing.
Listen, they're probably getting fed like bread with like worms in it. It's not like they're getting great
protein
nutrition.
and carbs, man.
That's disgusting.
Iron ball workouts.
You know what? I'm gonna send you back in time, and you can go do that. And then when you come back, maybe you'll have a little more sympathy.
That's fine.
It doesn't sound
That's fine.
fun. Anyway, he'd be happy back then, but everyone else was not. So they had that uprising in December 1863, and then they also had an attempted tunnel escape in February 1864. And then the civilian prisoners, they also had like one main event where 44 of them were being held for being involved in conspiracy that led to an uprising, and they were being held without a trial until October 17th, 1864. All but 7 of them were released, and those 7 later received pardons in 1864 and 1865.
Why did they receive the pardons?
I would think they weren't guilty.
I'd imagine. That's a lot of people to blame for conspiracy. For what?
For the uprising.
I guess.
Yeah. Listen, they were just not... There was a big war going on, you know. They were not having it. Anyone that seemed like they were bad, go to jail. That's what they did. Just like that.
Just like that?
Just like that.
I don't think it was like that.
It might have been. And after those people received the pardons, though, some of them still had to stay in the prison until the war ended.
Even though they were not guilty?
Yes. That's like you getting accused of like murder or something, and then they're like, oh, oops, he's innocent, but you got to stay in jail anyway.
Well, I mean, free healthcare, 3 meals a day. You can watch whatever is on the television, you know, because you're probably not getting a remote to the television.
No, you're not. You're not. And they didn't have TV back then, or free healthcare, or any of that. Anyway, so there was a lot of prisoners there, right? Do you think people were executed?
If they were all innocent, then I would not see why, unless it's like Confederates and with Union soldiers, then they would do it out of spite, because they're obviously fighting for two different things.
Well, yeah, they did have some Confederate soldiers there, and they also
No,
had
I'm saying what I'm saying is, if the Confederates were I guess, you know, the prison guards,
I see.
and the Confederates were the prisoners.
Well, so you don't think anyone was ever executed?
I don't see how anybody could be executed.
Well, listen.
If they were not found guilty.
This might shock you. It shocked me because I thought more like a lot of people would be executed, but only one person was ever executed at this site.
Okay.
And his name was William H. Howe. And I'll go over like his story a little bit more later, but just know that he was a Union soldier who was arrested for desertion and murder. And he's the only dude that ever was executed there. He was held in an underground cell known as Casemate 11 and executed on August 26, 18...
This thing goes underground?
Yeah, because it's the bomb shelter.
Oh.
And that's the casemate I was talking about that was discovered like later on.
I got you. No, that makes sense now.
Yeah, he was executed by hanging. So despite there not being really any executions, there were a lot of deaths though due to poor conditions. The casemates were poorly ventilated and damp, and you know that leads to diseases breeding.
Yeah.
The barracks also had very few windows and very few fireplaces, so not only was it damp, but it was cold and like no airflow. So again, diseases are being bred. The moat had rotting vegetable matter in it. That just sounds disgusting. I know. And dysentery and typhoid fever basically affected everyone. So, not a good time.
Jesus.
Guess how many people died?
How many prisoners?
I don't know how many prisoners in total. Just give me a number. How many people do you think died?
If they fit more than 1,000 prisoners in there, if 1,000 people died?
56,000 people died there from unsanitary conditions, overcrowding, and lack of food and water and disease. Can you believe that?
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you.
That's like... Wait, that's like more than the population was at the time. Or no, this is, 100 years later?
Yeah. This is during the Civil War.
I just feel like 56,000 people?
Yeah, that's a shit ton, right?
How big is this mud island, dude?
Big enough.
You're kidding me.
Well, they're overcrowding, you know? They're just
How,
shoving
over
many
what
people.
period of time were there 56,000 people that died?
Over the course of the whole Civil War.
So we're talking... 5 years? I feel like the Civil War lasted like 5 years.
Yeah, so over the whole time.
Was it 5 years?
I think so. Listen, I'm also
I don't think it lasted more than a decade.
No, it did not last a decade.
Let's say it's like 5 acres. You know, you're
5
fitting.
acres?
Yeah.
Well, it's not like 56,000 people were necessarily there at once. It's just that over the time...
They're just running through them, man.
Yeah,
That's a lot of balls on steel. Spur.
What?
Chain balls.
Okay.
That's a lot of balls around ankles.
Yeah. Okay. Moving
You're
on.
kidding me.
So the fort fell into disrepair yet again. And
I believe it.
Yeah, I know. They just keep after
It's
like
a lot
the
of
wars,
bodies, man.
They're just like, oh, we're gonna forget about it.
Stinking the place up.
Oh. You know this place is haunted. 56,000 people died there.
Mm-hmm. A lot of angry people, man.
Oh, yeah. It became mostly a tourist destination at the time. And
when?
After the Civil War.
Oh, okay.
People came to visit it. In 1915, the War Department declared it to be a National Historic Monument. And during World War I, the War Department provided some money to modernize the fort. So in 1917, they got about $8,000, which is about $200,000 today. And that was given to them to do the repairs, which were completed by August. In 1918, it served during World War I as storage for engines, machinery, and ammunition. And after World War I ended, the Naval Department continued to store the ammunition there. But because it was so close to Philly, the public was like nervous about it.
Yeah.
So in 1929, the fort became vacant again.
What is this place just running through people, man?
Do you know how much money, like, in repairs they would have saved probably if they just maintained it over the years rather than, like, abandoning it and then restarting again and then abandoning? Yeah.
Just demolish the thing at this point, man.
No, it's a historic monument. You can't do that.
Now it is.
Well, it was.
If I was in charge of, Joe's bulldozer company back in the 50s or whatever, that thing's gone.
You would have gotten arrested.
I'm tax dollars going to... No.
It was made a historic monument, though, in 1915. So.
If I was Joe's construction company in 1914, that thing's gone.
Oh my God!
I'll do it for free. I'll pay him, as long as I get to keep all the chain balls.
You like those chain balls? You want something to do workouts with nowadays?
You could probably do some cool stuff with all them balls, man. You can make like a pyramid, stack a pyramid up.
Okay. Anyway. World War II comes around, right? And it resumed its role as being part of the U.S. Navy Ammunition Department. The Army made repairs to the building and used it to house the anti-aircraft guns. So finally, in 1954, it was decommissioned after 183 years of service. That's impressive, right?
Wow.
It's a long-ass time.
So it held heavy artillery up until that?
Yeah, during World War II. And then World War II ended, and then I don't know what they did with the anti-aircraft guns. But
I feel like that's such a random place to beef up during World War II.
Well, it's a safe place to put their, weapons in.
I guess. But
sturdy. It's made it through almost 200 years of war.
Yeah.
It's pretty sturdy.
Okay.
So after it was decommissioned, they transferred it into the hands of the city of Philadelphia on November 14th, 1962. And it was later named a National Historic Landmark in 1970. Tours officially began in 1970, and they continue on today, so you can go and visit it. There are many buildings.
For $100 a voucher.
Probably. I don't know how much it costs. It's probably not $100.
It's probably $100.
It's probably like $35. That'd be my guess. There are many buildings that still stand. There's the blacksmith shop, which was restored in the 1970s. There was the commandant's house, but that was destroyed in the 1970s due to a fire from camping Boy Scouts. I wonder if they got...
Really?
Yeah, I wonder if they got in a lot of trouble.
Oh, I'm sure.
Also, why were they camping at this fort? Why not, camp in the woods somewhere? I don't know.
It's Philadelphia. That's a pretty central location. There is no pines left. They done cut all those down as punishment back in the day, man. I'm telling you.
They could find some trees somewhere. I'm just not sure a historic site is the place.
I bet there's not one tree on that historic monument.
But is it really the place for Boy Scouts to be camping? I would think not.
It's probably a tax write-off. It's fine.
Okay.
Just let them go. It's a stone structure. They couldn't possibly set it on fire.
But they managed to. There's also the artillery shed. There's hospital there. There's the officers' quarters, the soldiers' barracks, and even the bridge over the moat, which was restored in the 1980s.
That actually seems like something I'd want to go see for sure.
I know. We need to go. And then, look, I researched this. I just forgot I did. Casemate 11, it was discovered in 2006.
You hear that, people? She just found this. Found it.
It was found in 2006.
3 years in the making. Huh? What are you saying?
The Casemate 11, you know?
Okay.
I was talking about where William Howe was staying.
I remember.
They found it in 2006. Okay.
Okay. Oh, well, yeah.
That's kind of recent.
That is pretty recent.
I mean, I guess sometimes in my brain I think it's like 2020 still, but you know what I'm saying? 2006 was recent in terms of the scheme of how long this fort has been around.
Less than 30 years.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Now we get to go to the haunted stuff. You ready?
Let's hear it.
Okay. So there's two main ghosts that are super well documented. There's the faceless man, who is thought to be William H. Howe, and then the screaming woman, who is Elizabeth Pratt. So we're going to start with William H. Howe. And
I feel like I've heard of this guy before.
maybe you have. I don't know. He was a Union private from, and I hope I'm saying this right, Perkimanville, Pennsylvania. And he served in the 116th Pennsylvania Volunteer Regiment. He was known to be a German farmer, he was a great marksman, and he was held in high esteem by his officers. He sounds like a really great guy, doesn't he?
He does.
He also started off as a war hero because he was only one of 5 men to survive the Battle of Fredericksburg. That's just really impressive. I know. Poor William, though, it started to go bad when he became ill with dysentery and was unable to get treatment.
What the hell's with everyone getting killed by dysentery, man?
It was nasty
That
back then.
sounds nasty to die from. He died from dysentery.
I know.
That sounds disgusting.
It is disgusting. Just
say I died by like fire or something, man. No.
No. Well, he didn't die. He just became sick from it.
Same thing. Kind of.
Not really, but okay. So, some sources say that he couldn't get medical treatment because the medical tent of his regiment had burned down, and others say it was just really overcrowded and he couldn't get appropriate care.
Yeah.
So, William decided it was time to go home because he wanted to get like actual care. This dude was having 40 to 60 bowel movements a day.
It's good for him.
No! Can you imagine having to shit 40 times a day?
I'm lucky if I shit 3 times a week.
But this is like major diarrhea, like burning asshole.
I believe it with Jesus. I believe it. It was something called dysentery. That sounds disgusting.
All I'm saying is I would leave too if I was shitting my pants 40 times
with a burning asshole.
Yes, and couldn't get medical treatment. It's just awful. And then he was confined to bed for 2 months because he was just so sick.
And raw. He's probably raw.
So raw. Oh, can you imagine? And dehydrated, and I don't think you can't get an IV. It's just, oh my God.
Don't even start with that.
Dude, I'm just saying that would really suck.
Yeah.
So
it would be an easy IO, by the way. Problem solved. Continue.
Oh, I'm allowed to go on now?
Go ahead.
Just wanted to put that out
Just
there.
wanted to clear that up.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So despite William being like a really great guy and just coming down with a really bad case of dysentery.
Dysentery?
Yeah. They thought he was a deserter. Can you imagine? I mean, he went through all this stuff and they're like, this man must have deserted. So,
but he was in bed chilling.
He was in bed trying not to die because he couldn't get
running
medical
back
treatment.
and forth to the outhouse.
Oh my God.
With a crescent moon on the front of it.
I forgot that there was outhouses. That makes it even more uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, you're not shitting in the house. You got to run outside.
Oh my God.
Unless you want to be puking in the bed too.
Oh, poor William. So they sent an officer and 3 men, and they went to his house, but they were drunk. They weren't like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, William, we're just here to like see where you are because, we're thinking you're deserting. No, they were drunk. And it was probably late at night. And, back in the day, it wasn't exactly safe. There's like a war going on. He's got his wife at home. I don't know if he had any kids.
Wait, there's a war going on? Oh, this was prior.
Yeah, this is during the Civil War.
Okay.
So William was like, who the fuck's at my door? And they're drunk.
Jesus.
What?
All right.
They're probably...
Damn, they're aggressive.
Yeah. They're drunk and they're banging at his door. So William gotta, protect his family. He comes out and he shoots off what he thought was 2 warning shots. But William's been a sick man. He's been laying in bed. So, he used to be a great marksman, but his aim's a little off.
Uh-huh.
And he ended up hitting the officer who was later identified as Abraham Bartlett.
Abraham Lincoln?
No.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, not Abraham Lincoln. So then he was imprisoned at Eastern State Penitentiary, which...
Fair enough. He murdered a fellow man.
Yeah, because
who may or may not have been deserving of it.
Yeah, they came to his house drunk. In the middle of the night.
Pounding on the door.
Yeah. This is in the 1800s.
You're right.
They whatever. I feel for William. So he went to Eastern State Penitentiary, which we need to visit there as well. And we'll definitely be covering that later in the podcast.
I'm ecstatic.
You should be. It's a cool place. I've been there. And then after he went there, he was moved to Fort Mifflin. And poor William, he begged Abraham Lincoln for mercy. And I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I'll tell you why. But I feel like Abraham Lincoln should have been nice to him. Like, this man, he's a war hero, okay? He's been through it. And because you failed to give him appropriate medical treatment, he had to go home to get medical treatment. He didn't desert. And then you sent these drunk people to his house. Like, you know what I'm saying? Have some mercy on the poor man. Maybe make him do some hard labor for a little bit, you know?
Well, Abraham Lincoln, he was probably a little...
stressed.
A little, sad because his 11-year-old son died during the war. Probably from dysentery. God, his poor wife.
Oh.
Is his wife dead too from dysentery? She's not, I'm just kidding.
Abraham Lincoln was like...
dysentery.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can go on now. No more dysentery talk? Okay. There was a high rate of desertion at the time, so Abraham Lincoln thought he needed to make a point that desertion was not acceptable, and Hal was the one who ended up suffering because of it. He was charged with murder and desertion and executed by hanging at Fort Mifflin in 1864. Like I said, making him the only person to ever be executed there.
That is crazy. And Abraham Lincoln, he is the one that kind of was like dotted the I on that?
Yeah.
That is so crazy.
Because he was begging him for mercy, and he was like, nope, you're not getting any.
Wow.
I know.
Man, fuck Abraham Lincoln. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Got some strong feelings about this. William was hung with a black bag over his head, hence being known as the Faceless Man. And if you can believe it, this man was only 23 or 24 at the time of his death.
Shocker.
He'd been
You mean he was around 30 years old?
Yeah, like you said. I just like, what have I done? I'm almost 23, you know? What have I done with my life? This man fought in a war. He was a war hero. He was a farmer. He had a wife. It's just like, damn. He murdered someone by 23. He had dysentery.
He's living his best life.
I don't know if he's living his best life, but he's living a life.
He got to talk to the president, technically, so...
It's just crazy how much stuff people did back in the day by 23. I guess they didn't have as much time, so they had to.
Yeah, not everybody has time to listen to 3,000 hours of podcasts.
There was also not podcasts back in the day, for anyone wondering. Just got to point that out.
Just stop talking.
I forgot his name. Oopsies.
The Faceless Man.
Yeah, William. He's buried in Perkimanville, Pennsylvania, in an unmarked grave.
Unmarked?
I know, isn't that sad?
Was he a white man or a black man?
He was white.
Was he?
Yeah. I think.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's a great question, actually. Yeah. I didn't look it up, but I just assumed he was white.
What's his name? What's
William
his full name?
H. Howe.
I'll look it up right now. Go ahead.
But I figured it's probably unmarked because he was a deserter, you know?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So there's there's an unmarked grave at the corner of two stone walls, and they are what originally marked his property. So it is possible to find his grave, and you can even ask the current property owners for directions.
He's a white man.
He is a white man. He looks really old for 23.
Yeah, he kind of looks like an asshole.
He does. Well, we'll post a picture of him, too.
That dude's got to be like 50.
Yeah, no way he's 23.
He teaches history at a university. He's been lying.
Yeah. So you can go and see his grave, but just keep in mind it is on private property, so don't just go like...
You're kidding me. It is?
There. It is, yeah.
That's kind of cool.
You have to ask the current property owners for directions because it sits behind their house. So this apparition, William, he's often easy to see and is dressed in Civil War attire, but like I said, you can't make out his face. Poor man.
I mean, probably best. It's one of the ugliest dudes I've ever seen in my life.
Don't go hating on the dead man. All right, moving on to the Screaming Woman, a.k.a. Elizabeth Pratt. So there's the legend and then there's the truth. We're going to tell you the legend first. Elizabeth Pratt lived with her husband and her daughter in the officers' quarters. Her daughter fell in love with an enlisted man, and Officer Pratt
disowned. But there's where she went wrong, dude.
What's wrong with the enlisted?
No, that's what I'm saying. That's probably what was the cause of her demise, getting involved in that.
Oh, you're right, because...
I'm already guessing that's what happened.
Yeah, Officer Pratt disowned
Jealousy.
his daughter. No. Officer Pratt was like, we don't mingle with the enlisted. I'm an officer.
Yeah.
You are not dating any less than an officer. So he was like, get out of here.
Jealousy.
You're disowned.
See?
Well,
Told
more
you.
just because the dad was probably a controlling asshole.
Well, probably his 12-year-old daughter, she's got to be, 12?
Who knows?
That's halfway through your life right there, man.
So the daughter got typhoid fever and she died before Elizabeth ever had the chance to make things up with her. So then Elizabeth hung herself from the balcony, and it's said that you can still hear her today desperately screaming for her daughter in the officers' quarters.
Really?
That's the legend, yeah. I mean, can you imagine? Back in the day, the dudes were like in control of everything. So Elizabeth probably didn't want to disown her daughter, but her husband was like, nope, we're disowning her.
You're
so
right.
not only was she unable to prevent her daughter from getting disowned, then her daughter went and died, and she never had a chance to say goodbye.
Wow, man, what?
What
That's
a time.
depressing, man.
I know.
That's depressing, man.
All right, so you ready for the truth? The true story?
Let's hear it, man. I am literally waiting to hear this.
Elizabeth Pratt, she did live in the fort during the 18th century with her officer husband, Sergeant Pratt of the U.S. Army. They had 2 children together, but both children likely died from yellow fever and their...
Dysentery.
No, yellow fever. Not dysentery.
AKA dysentery.
AKA not dysentery. And they died in 1802 and 1803. If you look at the records, there was a big outbreak of yellow fever at the time, so that's why they think it's more likely that they died from that rather than typhoid. Also, there was likely no involvement with an enlisted man because the headstone of the daughter read child, which means that she was likely less than 12 and unmarried. In the Book of Internments in Fort Mifflin archives, Miss Pratt's date of death is February 11th, 1803. However, no cause is listed. I don't know, though, if they would list suicide as a cause of death just because it was such a...
You telling me out of all the shit that happened back in the day, it's a little too hostile to mark suicide as cause of death?
Yeah, man, they were real weird about that shit because they thought it was like a sin and whatnot. So they didn't want to look bad and whatnot. So, I don't know. But people think that she probably died from yellow fever too, just because there was that outbreak in the area. And she is likely screaming due to the loss of both of her children.
And isn't that crazy too? That people were dying from yellow fever?
People were dying from everything.
Yellow
man.
fever, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it just like flu-like symptoms?
Let's look that up.
I
think it's spread by mosquitoes.
It is.
Yeah. It's one of those
Is it still around
diseases.
today?
Oh, I'm sure, but we have mosquito control and whatnot.
We have mosquito control?
Yes. I did a whole project on this in nursing school. Oh. I won't get into it because it's really boring.
Yeah, please do not. I do not want to hear that.
It says symptoms include fever, headache, muscle pain, loss of appetite, nausea, and vomiting, and also jaundice, hence being called yellow fever.
Oh, okay.
Dark urine, stomach pain, vomiting, and bleeding. There is a vaccine.
Kidney failure and liver failure too, man.
I guess
that actually sounds pretty horrible.
Yeah. There's no specific treatment, but you can take steps to feel better. There is a vaccine for it, but there's no cure.
Well, then why the hell is there a vaccine for it? Isn't that what a vaccine is, a cure?
No, a cure is you get the disease and then you get cured. A vaccine is to prevent it.
Oh.
But you typically only get it if you're going to travel to high-risk areas. That's yellow fever vaccine. It's not something we would get because where we live isn't a high-risk area.
No, okay, that makes sense.
So, there is one more interesting thing to know about the screaming ladies. Mm-hmm. The first time that a haunting was ever recorded at this location was in 1778. And that's how you know that there's some legitimacy to these hauntings. Because it's not like they started saying that there was hauntings.
Old Ben wrote it down in a journal.
Yep.
300 years ago.
I know. He heard, or I don't know if it was Ben or not. Who knows? Anyway, whoever wrote this down.
Did he put an asterisk that he was gasping during this?
He might have.
To put emphasis that he was scared?
He might have. But In 1778, it was recorded that wailing women were heard calling out for their men during the siege of Fort Mifflin, but no women were present at the time.
Really?
Really? Isn't that spooky?
I'm shaking.
You're shaking. So those are like the two main hauntings, but there are some other little hauntings. There's the blacksmith who's known as Jacob, and he haunts the blacksmith shop.
Is that just touristy bullshit, though?
This stuff, I don't know. I'd have to go there and see.
This just sounds like, James haunts the blacksmith, with his hammer.
I don't know.
With his long hammer.
I mean, this says that, my research said that you'll hear an anvil hitting the iron, but when you peek in, there's nothing there. That, I do sometimes wonder if that's more like touristy stuff. I don't know, though. I'd have to go and see.
Yeah.
But this is interesting, I thought. It said that Jacob used to argue over having the windows and doors open to the shop, and so now the windows and doors will open on their own. And people think that it's like Jacob still arguing with the dude in the afterlife over that. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
The next haunting is the Lamplight Man. This is seen on the second floor balcony of the barracks. And those people, or the barracks back in the day, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, the barracks back in the day.
Yeah, so back in the day, they were visited by a lamplight, who was a man who lit oil lamps at night. And it was just his job, because, they didn't have light switches, so someone had to go around and light it all.
Yeah.
This apparition...
What a job to have.
I know, right?
You make 8 gold coins a day to light 12 lamps.
Probably like 8 gold coins.
Give it a little whisping wind to blow it out.
Oh my gosh.
8 gold coins a day.
Yeah. Anyway, this apparition is hard to see and it's very easy to miss, but some people claim that you'll see a very pale man with a long pole walking around and that there's a little flicker of light at the end. And it's thought that the Lamplight Man is going around still doing his job. I thought that was so cute, honestly. Wow. Oh, I just thought it was cute.
Well, I would too if I was making 8 gold coins a day.
He's still doing it. Some other sightings, these are just general ones. There's orbs, there's shapes but that you might see behind the door frames, disembodied voices. Some people see like soldiers cleaning their guns and think there's like a reenactment going on. They'll smell baking bread or fire burning even though no one's baking bread. I know, that probably smells so good.
Okay.
Some visitors claim that they've been touched, pushed, or grabbed. And then this is a classic one. Electrical issues, such as flashlights turning on and off or batteries dying unexpectedly.
You could just copy and paste that to anywhere.
I know. That stuff's... Okay, but story time, guys. I visited a cemetery once when I was a kid. And I had my camera. And I thought I was, like, recording. Sadly, when I left, I realized that it had not been recording at all the whole time. But this is the crazy part. In the cemetery, the camera battery, totally full, good, four little batteries. It was like an old camera, so it had like the 4 little slots to show you that it was full. As soon as we left the cemetery, that thing died.
No shit.
I'm dead serious. This was in Texas. Isn't that crazy?
That's fucking terrifying, dude.
It was really cool. So cool. I love that.
Wow.
Well, anyway, that's the end of Fort Mifflin.
Wow. Well, I could say that was actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was.
I had a lot of involvement with the Civil War. Old Abe Lincoln. Old dickhead Lincoln, man.
Oh my God.
Killing somebody for no reason.
I know, poor
For protecting
William.
his home.
Poor William.
He's got a raw asshole,
Yeah, I know.
He's just trying to sleep. He's trying to sleep it off, man.
He's trying to sleep off that dysentery.
Oh. Fuck that, man.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the first episode. Thank you for listening. I'm so excited for next week's episode. It's a really old place.
It's a really old place?
It's a really old place.
Wow.
That's the only hint you're going to get. And it's not in the U.S.
What a great hint.
Really old and not in the U.S.
I thought you told us we were going to be...
I did, but...
Okay.
I just... now that I'm looking at my list...
She literally pulled up a PDF file.
There's actually
with 30 locations.
Yeah, no. The next one, really old and not in the U.S. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. I would love it if you would follow me on Instagram. It's at History and Haunts Podcast. You can also email me at Gmail at historyandhaunts@gmail.com.
That's a long email.
Listen, History and Haunts Podcast historyandhaunts@gmail.com was already taken, so I had to do History and Haunts Podcast.
Could have done like PC,
No, you got to keep it standard,
Something like that.
Matches my Instagram handle.
Okay.
Anyway, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love comments, questions, recommendations. We'd love a recommendation. Yes, feedback. We'd love to know how we could improve. And also if we can improve
this setup of us sitting upright in a bed in an 83-degree room with no fan on, animals out of the room.
Yeah, we got to find a
Workers went home from building a house across the street.
Yeah, that'd be great improvements.
Squinting to see anything.
If you guys have any recommendations...
Sitting... I'm just kidding. I'm done.
Recommendations for locations to do, to research and whatnot.
To sit in to record this. Okay, sorry.
You know what? I'm getting rid of him. He's done. This is the first and last episode with Jake.
Hey, it's been great, guys. I'll see you next time.
Anyway, like I was saying, if you have any recommendations for places that we should cover, or if you have any experiences at Fort Mifflin, I would love to hear it. Email me.
Yeah, for sure.
Or comment on the
post.
Do
pictures too. I'd love to see this place.
Dude, yeah, pictures would be great.
Like personal pictures.
And on Spotify, that's where this podcast is going to start with. I'd love to expand like to Apple and whatnot, YouTube, just to get more viewers. But if you could, like, subscribe and review or something.
Oh God.
Comment.
I don't know. Don't
subscribe.
Say that.
Turn on the notifications. I don't know. Whatever you do on podcast on Spotify.
You don't even know what to say, and you want them to do it.
Yeah. Rate, review, and subscribe. That's what it is.
That's the first and last time we're ever saying that.
Subscribe and comment. That's how you'll help other people get to find my podcast. So thank you so much, guys, and until next week. Bye.
See ya.